I got a room full here at Velma Jackson. I have 18 with me. We all have your handouts you gave us. We're also recording this for our friends at Rosa Scott, Germantown High School, and Ridgeland High School. So all of our ninth grade college career readiness students.
Awesome. Let me pull up my information, and I hate that I'm not prepared. All right. There we go. Now, I've never done, usually I'm just a participant on Zoom. I'm not usually conducting anything on Zoom. I'm a listener. So my question to you, Mr. Kaidet, can you see my screen?
I cannot, but you do have share screen ability turned on. Yep, now I see it.
All right. Okay. Just trying to get accustomed to all of this. Well, I want to say thank you so much for asking me to talk about banking and the different career paths and how I got here. Thank you so much.
Glad to have you.
Thank you. Well, I wanted to just let everyone be aware that I work for the Citizens Bank. A lot of people get that confused with Citizens National, but we are the Citizens Bank. We're based out of Philadelphia, Mississippi, and we've been around since 1908. We've been here a very long time.
Wow.
Very long time. A little bit about me. My name is Katrena Thompson, and I am the deposit banking officer for the Citizens Bank in Ridgeland. I'm married to my husband, Monty, and we have 3 kids and 2 dogs. Just a little bit about that when just about my kids. My oldest is 24, the middle one, my son, he's 22, and our youngest is 19. I was born in Houston, Texas, H-Town. I love all things Texas, especially all things Houston. But we lived in Humble, Texas, which is a suburb of Houston. Does anyone know where Humble is?
I actually do. And I also have a friend in Pearland and a friend in Bayview.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah. Bayview. Yeah, Bayview. Yep.
So we moved to Brandon in 2006 for my husband's job. During that time, before we moved, I worked for Chase Bank.
Okay.
When we moved here, I stayed home for 10 years. Our kids were young, and I wanted to be here for them because we had no extended family here. And it was a great 10 years. I enjoyed it. As they got older, and my youngest, I think when she got to the 7th grade, I said, maybe I need to get back out there because one day they're gonna be gone, and then what am I gonna do? So that's how I ended back up in banking. But I attended Fisk University in Nashville, Tennessee. I think you said your sister's in Nashville.
Yeah, and I used to live in Clarksville. I'm very familiar with Fisk. It's a great HBCU, and they just rejoined the Gulf Coast Conference, and they play Tougaloo here in Jackson.
That's right. Where I met my husband, he went to Tennessee State University, which is where my oldest daughter, she graduated from Fisk. My youngest daughter, she goes to Tennessee State, and we met in the middle, my husband and I, and there you go. Whereas my son, he stayed at Hines. He didn't venture out, but It's okay. But that's just a little bit about me. Once I moved back here, I was working for State Bank and Trust. And I enjoyed that job. I was just a teller. I enjoyed it. It was something easy. I could tend to my kids. I really had no true, I didn't have a lot of responsibility, and I enjoyed it. Eventually, I moved up in that position where I became a personal banker, and then an interim branch manager, and then we were bought out by Bank Plus. And when we were bought out by Bank Plus, I didn't go because I didn't want to go. And I'm here at the Citizens Bank. I followed my boss, and as you can see in that pamphlet, we'll go over that, over the different people that I work with and those responsibilities that they have. All right, in banking, there are different types of bank. There's thousands of banking jobs. There's just not one basic. When you go into the bank or into a branch, you'll see a teller, you'll see a loan officer, you'll see a branch manager. But there are so many people behind the scenes. There's so many different paths that you can take. But just the basic ones that we deal with daily, that I do, is a teller, the universal banker, deposit banking officer, which is me, and a branch manager. We also have a loan officer and the area president. I really won't go too much into talking about those positions, only just these here. To be a teller, you would have to have a high school diploma or GED equivalent. You should be, or you need to be, proficient in math. 6 months to 1 year experience as a teller, proficient with Microsoft Office applications, previous work in an office environment, and that's very important. Learning how to have an inside voice versus an outside voice, and some type of previous cash handling experience. The very first job that I worked at.
I'm sorry to cut you off. I'm glad you've had the Microsoft Office there, because we are an Apple school, but I try to convince these students that knowing not only iOS, but knowing Windows is also very important, because the Microsoft Office is not going anywhere, and it is used way more in the corporate world than the Apple operating systems.
You're so true. Unfortunately, I'm an Android user.
I'm the same.
But that is very true. My daughter, all of my kids, they graduated from Brandon High School. That is an iOS school. Everything is done on the MacBook. But now she's trying to navigate the world of Microsoft. She's used to Google Sheets instead of Microsoft Word. It's a transition. I think it's just, as a person should be fluent in more than one language, which I'm really not. You should be fluent in more than one application.
Absolutely.
It would benefit
that's
you.
Across several industries, not just banking, but it's just that's the way the world is going in any type of business. That's
so very true. And when she's learning, she's not enjoying it, but she's learning, and she's seeing that it's really not that hard. But also you should have some type of cash handling experience. Most of the time, the very first job I ever had, I worked for Burger King, which was kind of like a big conversation topic, because my husband worked for McDonald's, and Burger King, McDonald's, whatever. But during that time, you were used to adding and subtracting in your head. You didn't necessarily wait for the computer to tell you what the cash back was. But it kind of helps to not necessarily depend on the calculator or depend on the app, depend on your brain. It works. Yep. You just got to use it. But those are the requirements just to be a teller. Some of the responsibilities that a teller has, I will say this, the teller, to me, in my opinion, is the most important person, well, one of the most important people in the bank, because you interact with all of the customers. You will, you're the first person that they see when there's something good. You're the first person that they see when there's something bad. But you're the most important person. Also, and I might not have put that on there, customer service skills. Knowing how to deal with people, knowing how to speak to people is so important. Solving problems, so important. But some of the responsibilities, conduct appropriate teller transactions, including deposits and disbursements of cash. That's where the cash handling comes in. Coins and checks from checking and savings accounts. There are some banks, some of your larger banks, they'll have a machine and they'll spit the money out to you, and you just count it out to the customer, or you'll just give it to the customer and you really won't have to count. In my opinion, machines make mistakes. You really need to just count. It's not gonna hurt. The more you do it, the better you'll be. But when dealing with customers, cash is very important because at the end of the day, you will have to balance. And you should want to balance to a zero. There is no a penny here, a quarter there. You should want to balance to zero every day. And math will help you greatly. Accept loan payments. Lots of customers have various types of loans, car loans, home loans, personal loans. You will process those transactions. And then you would need to be able to answer any kinds of questions that they may have about their loans. That's within your wheelhouse.
Yeah, before you came on, we actually watched a video about the banking industry, and it said that finance professionals have to explain complex terms in simple language. So it's almost like you're dumb. You have to be an expert on the material, but you have to assume the person you're talking to has no idea what you're talking about.
That's correct. I will give an example. AT, who works here, who's a teller, if a customer, I think if I'm remembering correctly, just in how you might say, I want $1,100. The customer might say, I want 1,100. No, it was 1,110. That's how the customer said it. I need 1,110. When he interpreted that, he thought he wanted $1,100 in tens. Everyone's communication style is different. It's your job as the professional to communicate where they will understand what you're saying. Not as so much for them to understand your lingo, your terminology. You need to have those communication skills where you break it down, where you would interpret it, where they will be able to interpret what you're saying in their communication style.
Yeah, and just to somebody, I have experience in the customer service and retail, and it's similar because if you want to keep a customer and maybe they open a new account, open a new mortgage or whatever, they're going to deal with the people that are easiest to communicate with. So if you want to keep a customer, you have to be able to communicate with them. You don't have to have all these special degrees, but having this communication and customer service face-to-face skills are just invaluable, even more so than having a fancy finance degree.
That's correct. That is very correct. And there are customers that would want certain tellers or certain people to wait on them because you will get to know them. You will understand, oh, okay, when I speak to this customer, I have to break it down this way. And when I speak to this customer, they might know more than me with plenty of degrees and they can educate me in a different way. But communicating, having excellent customer service skills are so important. Count and roll loose coins, identify counterfeit currency. Those are just some of the things. Counterfeit bills, I think in Louisville is rampant right now with $100 bills. Please be careful out there. Even with they will take the time to counterfeit a dollar bill. That's ridiculous. Yeah. But just being able to identify that as you get more into banking, you can just feel it, you can see it, you just already know it's something wrong.
Yeah, it actually is pretty easy. It's just something you can't get in a hurry on.
That's correct. And the balancing daily. Balancing, if you take your time with every transaction, make sure you understand and the customer understands, and you're counting your money, counting the money going in and out of your door is so important to balance to zero every day. That way there's no discrepancies, there's no errors. It's just being accountable every day. But those are just some of the very few responsibilities that a teller has, in addition to maintaining the vault, just different things such as that. But Mr. Pygott is right. The communication, it doesn't matter what position you have, what job, what your role is. It's very important to communicate where the customer understands, not just make sure that the customer understands you. The customer needs to just understand, and you have to break it down. Some don't need it, but most do. A universal banker, it used to be back in the 90s, they were called personal bankers. The personal bankers sat in an office or sat at a desk and they opened accounts and that's all they did. And not that that's not important, but they didn't have other responsibilities other than opening the account, servicing the customer, adding products on to that customer. Now they're called universal bankers, where it's a combination of a teller and a personal banker. Some of their responsibilities is that they open accounts, checking, savings, CDs, certificates of deposits, and answer any questions and concerns that the customer may have. There are some customers that may have questions over why was I charged this fee? You would need to be able to understand that and tell the customer and explain it to where the customer will understand why that fee was assessed. Some customers may want to have, what is it? I'm trying to think. Different things that you can see and assess on their account that could be beneficial to them that they may not even know that that product was available to them.
Wow.
You would need to be able to articulate and express that. Identifying the needs of new and existing customers and offer appropriate services currently available. Not only is the job for the universal banker just servicing customers that walk in or customers that are existing. Everywhere I go, I represent the Citizens Bank. Everywhere I go. That means that if I'm driving and someone might have made me mad driving, I still represent the bank. And you have to hold yourself to a higher standard at all times. There are times where, it will, but you can't, if you want to attract new customers, they would have seen you before you would even have noticed that they've seen you.
Yeah,
I have
that's
had
true.
that
It's true
so
in
many
the industry. Absolutely.
with my son playing football. Oh, I remember. Oh, yeah, you're the football mom. Yeah, that was me. You're the gymnastics mom. Yeah, that was me. And it's making connections and making acquaintances as you go. And it helps to bring in businesses because they have some type of relationship with you. They've seen you when you're out and about with your kids, with your family, with your husband, at church. And as a result of that, we bring in business that way from relationships. So we also, universal bankers, assist in community awareness events to increase bank outreach and foster new business opportunities. Kind of like what I said with the gymnastics and the football and just going to Walmart or Kroger or whatever. But we also go out into the community and we volunteer time. Not just universal bankers. I do it, the loan officer does it, the teller, we all do it. I just went to Stew Pot. The bank was closed on Monday. I was at Stew Pot on Monday. I'm not going to say every time that the bank is closed that I'm volunteering time, but to give back is important. And when we give back to the community that we serve, that's even better. One of the other duties that the universal banker has as well is being a teller. So if the line is long and she has that capability of servicing a customer, cashing a check, doing a deposit, or whatever that might be, you would do that role as well. So it's a universal role. It's not just being a teller. It's not just being a personal banker. You're all in one. So.
Yeah, and that is a position that somebody could start and work their way up in as far as a vertical advancement within the bank, correct?
As a universal banker?
Yes.
Most of the time for that position, I will say for here at this bank, they would want someone that's already had some type of new account experience.
Okay.
As far as for the teller position, if you worked at McDonald's, that counts. If you worked at Sonic,
yeah, I mean, because I know your options are limited when you're 16, 17 years old, but it's important to take those jobs seriously because those skills do transfer into other areas.
I mean, I worked at Burger King.
Yeah.
My next job, I was still in school. I worked at the bank as a teller.
Awesome.
Those jobs count. And I will also say, even when you're working those jobs that you think might not count, because they do. At the previous bank that I worked for, the head of human resources, she loved this. She went to Popeyes. She thought that this girl's, her personality was great. Her customer service was great. how she talked to the customers were great, and she offered her a job
Wow.
as a teller
Wow.
based on her experience getting food.
Wow.
All the jobs matter.
Yep.
All of them.
Absolutely.
Some of the requirements for a universal banker, and not necessarily, is having a bachelor's degree in finance, business administration, or a related field of previous experience. That's just an option, in my opinion. You don't have to have that to get a job as a universal banker. To me, the sales or customer service experience preferred, that's just as valuable as the degree. The degree helps, but the sales or customer service experience preferred is just as invaluable to me. Working knowledge of retail banking practices, rules, and regulations, kind of knowing all the different regs that are involved, the rules, the etiquette of how the bank works, how to service customers, the regulations, dealing with auditors, all of those things. Those help, but those can also be learned as well if you really don't know. Detailed understanding of banking services and products. Every bank product is different. Every bank is different. They have similarities, but learning that this one charges this fee. This is how you avoid it on this account. Knowing and remembering and learning those things is very beneficial, and it helps to service your customer better. Proficient, again, is Mr. Tiger said, in Microsoft Office Suite. Being proficient in learning how to use the tools of the trade.
I've never had a job where I didn't know how to use that.
Yes. I mean, I've never had a job where I had to use Apple products.
Yeah.
Not that I'm bashing Apple, but I haven't. Multitasking and time management skills is very key. Before I leave for the day, when I was in this particular role, I would write down what I needed to do. I would save it in my calendar. I would have all my things lined up. So when I would come to work the next day, I'm just hitting the floor running. Being able to manage your time is key, because at any given time, a customer can come in and what you thought you needed to do is now secondary. The customer in front of you is now primary. Being able to do more than one thing at a time, that's important too. And I'm pretty sure you kids are probably great multitaskers, because if you're listening to music and you're watching TikTok and you're studying and you're probably have the TV on, you know how to multitask on some level.
Yep.
So, and again, excellent communication skills. Being able to articulate yourself, being able to remain calm even when the customer might not be, to be very rude or mean, or just being able to express yourself in a way that is professional and is calm is key.
Yeah, and you talk about that, and in this class, I don't really have a chance to, because we have to move so fast, but a lot of these have some of my other classes where I require presentations. Now, I've never graded them hard, and I always say, the point is not to make you nervous about speaking to people, but any job you're going to have, especially in the financial world, you're going to have to be able to speak to customers and speak to colleagues in a professional manner. It's not something you'll be able to get away from. If you plan on having a great career, that's something you're going to have to learn how to do.
Yes, sir.
And that doesn't mean you got to speak in front of 3,000 people, but you're going to have to learn to speak in a professional and educated manner, no matter what your field is.
That's correct. Because at this branch here, at any given moment, the chairman can walk through, given board members, they do walk through, anyone, their family and friends of people on the board or people from Philadelphia can walk through at any given time. You have to maintain a sense of, you have to be professional, and you have to make sure that you communicate effectively.
Absolutely.
I can't express that enough. Now, the last one is deposit operation officer / branch manager. I will say the only difference between those two positions is which I am the deposit operations officer. At this time, I do not do loans. Whereas the branch manager, they do loans. You do everything the same, except I don't do loans. We both oversee the operations of the bank. We make sure that whatever bills that we get are paid. We make sure that everything is in working order. We make sure that the bank has what it needs to function. From the staffing to whatever, we make sure that it functions. We mentor and coach staff as they work to achieve performance goals. For example, our teller here, he's learning more customer service skills and looking at customers' accounts, dealing with things that he normally doesn't deal with, but just quick, simple answers. We're working on that, on how to have him be able to read and look to see how to answer that quick call when they call to ask about a CD. He doesn't open CDs, he doesn't open accounts, but being able just to answer that one quick call about when does it mature? What is my interest rate? That helps to not have the customer be on hold. That helps not to have the customer be called back. So we're always mentoring. I'm always trying to coach and cross-train to make sure if this one is not here, that one knows how to do it. And that helps with customer service so great, so much. They love it. Develop staff to ensure that they have the training they require and are cross-trained to cover one another's job duties.
Yep.
Just like I said, being able to, even if it's not your job, and being able to know a little bit about someone else's job, that's just like a little feather in your cap. When it's time for performance reviews, you'll be able to write what you did, what you went above and beyond doing. And not only will you have to write it, your manager will notice that, wow, okay, she did, that's not even a part of her job assignment.
And just from a management aspect as well, being able to do multiple jobs, to me, would have your staff trust you more. So it would help you run a more profitable and more efficient branch, which is going to cut down on wait times. It's going to cut down on turnover and a lot of things that a lot of managers take for granted.
That's right. That's right. Luckily, we only have two employees here. One is a teller, one is a universal banker that work at this branch because we're new, we're starting out at this location. And I will say that I've been blessed. They're always willing to learn something more, always willing to do something more, and you get rewarded for that. Develop and attain sales goals, deliver excellent customer service, and grow the location's revenues. When it comes to every branch has a goal, whether it's on how many accounts you can do, or we're not pressured in that regard, or your loans, it's about being profitable. Even in your personal lives, as you get older, if you're gonna wanna be profitable. After you pay all of your bills, you're gonna wanna see some left, and you're gonna say, wow, okay, not that that's for you to spend up, but you wanna be profitable. Yeah. So does the bank. That's a part of my job, is to help make sure that the bank goals are met, the branch's goals are met, and that we're driving up revenue, we're driving up sales, but only delivering customers products that they need. Not necessarily just giving it to them because, yeah, you want it, it looks good, but if you focus on giving the customers or advising them on the different products and services that we have to offer, everything will work in place. You won't have to try as hard. If you do the job that you're supposed to do and make sure that you do that job well, everything will fall into place. And then the last thing is loans, which I said that's what the branch manager does. But even in my role, it is my job to advise or to, which I like to say, tag on to customers for loans. There's different ways that, that can be achieved. Either it could be secured, unsecured, personal, a credit card, some things that they may not even have thought of. Let's repair your credit, different things such as that. But I think that's it as far as for the loan officer that does require some form of higher education. Daniel here, if you look in the pamphlet, I made a copy of everyone that is an officer in the Metro Jackson area. Whereas Daniel is our loan officer and he does have a degree in finance, but he focuses more on commercial. He wants to focus more on commercial loans, but he does all types of loans. And as George Gammon, that's on there, he does primarily commercial loans, and he is the boss over all of us, over all the branches that are in the greater Metro Jackson area.
Wow.
So are there any questions?
Yes, we have some. I have some before I get to the students' questions. And that was, and a lot of that stuff I didn't know, so that's really cool. But
Okay.
I have one about the first one is just about is just the job environment, because I always tell the kids, when you decide on a career, it's important to determine if you want to have a family, how what hours you want to work. But banking is one of those that has a really good schedule because it's pretty much set in stone, because it's a typical 8 to 5-ish type thing. You're off on the weekends, you're off on the holidays. So if you want to have a family, it is more conducive to that, correct?
That is correct. I will say when I worked for Chase, this is back at home, those hours would start from 6 in the morning and it would end until 7. And that was pretty long, but you do have, and I did work on Saturdays. Some banks are open on Saturdays, some are not. As for this bank, it's wonderful because we're not open on Saturdays. And our day, it ends at 4:30, Monday through Thursday, and on Fridays, it ends at 5.
Wow.
I call myself blessed. And you're right, it's a great job to have. It's a great career path to have. And it does allow you to spend time with your family.
Yeah, and the other question I have before I get to the students' questions is, obviously I'm on the outside looking in here, but from something I've gotten from the Black community, especially the rural Black community, is the untrust of banks. They don't
Right.
they don't trust the banking services. They think it's too far to drive. So why is it important for our young minority students to understand that banks are here to help them, and things they can get out of that, even if they're not going to be in the banking field? Why it's important to understand that the banks around here really have their best interest at heart?
Well, I can say this: as you get older, you will need to have a relationship with some type of bank, and I think that it is good when they're able to come in and they see someone that looks like them working in the bank, knowing that they can trust. It's a trust. Sometimes mom and dad may have used Chime and Cash App and all those other conveniences that really can't match what a bank can do. It's important to have a relationship with the bank, especially one that you trust, because at some point you're going to want to get a car loan, and I don't see Cash App doing that. At some point you're going to want to have a mortgage, and I don't think Chime is doing that. But it's important to have your money FDIC insured. I know some of these applications are not. It would be important if Chime, or if some, I will say some, I don't know what you would call, I can't think of what they're called, went out of business, and so did your money.
Yep.
At a bank, is FDIC insured. You're able to make a claim to get your money back if the bank was to default,
Yep.
which we're not defaulting at all. That's not going to happen. We've been around since 1908. But it's important for you to understand how a checking account works, how a savings, the true purpose of what a savings account is for. It's not for you to get $10 out today, $20 out tomorrow. It's for you to actually do what it says, save. But it's important. It's more important. Cash App is fine, but it's important to have a relationship with the bank.
Yeah, and the Cash App does serve a purpose. I mean, it obviously is convenient in some ways, But you're right, especially we have some young people that want to be entrepreneurs. It's pretty much impossible to get a business loan anywhere other than a bank, unless you want to deal with somebody shady. So I agree. And again, I understand I have an outsider's opinion, but just from my view, it's important to understand that it really is very important to have a relationship with possibly multiple banks, depending on how you're doing business. But I do want to get to some of these questions, and some of these are great. But this person, Brian McMurtry, and he asked, what do you look for when you're hiring employees?
Well, one, it's nice when you come dressed for the position. That's important. Not coming with Uggs on and different things such as that. That's important. Your email address. That's important. If you want to have one for play, don't put your application with it. Those are things that, I can just tell before you even come in. But when you come in, come dressed for the part. Come confident. Come, even if you don't necessarily have all the skills, but have most of the skills or some of them. Or ask if there's some other job or some other, what is it? I think at the very first bank I worked at, there was a girl, worked in high school. She wanted to be a teller. She did not work in high school. She went to the high school, Humble High School. And they couldn't hire her as a teller, but they let her volunteer there. Now, I don't know about necessarily here. She worked in the office in the back, filing, doing different things such as that. And then eventually, as she got older and she built up trust with the bank because she was young, she was able to be a teller. But just some of the things that I look for is your resume? How does it look? Are there misspelled words? Do you have references? Are these references related to you necessarily? Having outside references help.
Yep.
Instead of just mom and dad. Do you volunteer? Because we volunteer a lot here. I mean, we go to nursing homes, we go to daycares, we go to elementary schools, we go to shelters, we volunteer a lot. But those are just some of the things that I look for before you even get here. It's the resume, what it entails, not necessarily what jobs you may have had, but what do you do with your spare time?
As juniors and seniors, we're going to spend pretty much district-wide, spend a lot of time having solid resumes, because it can be done even without a lot of work experience to really look like an attractive candidate.
That's right.
Now, this is Terry Thompson, and he asked, how stressful is it to work in a banking atmosphere?
I will say some days it's a little hectic, but it's not bad, because when you really know your job, it's not stressful. Sometimes the customers can come in stressed, but when you're able to communicate and get, a true understanding of this is what's going on with your account or with your relationship with us, it's really not bad. To me, the most stressful thing is just making sure that people that come into the bank have good intention. Just making sure of that. And I can't say it any plainer, but just making sure that you're not robbed. That's the most stressful part to me.
Oh, I'm sure. This is Christian Dawson, and he asked, since you manage employees, how do you settle conflicts among colleagues?
Well, luckily here at this branch, I have not had any conflict. When I worked at a different bank, I did have employees that had conflict, and you pull them aside privately and you let them talk, because that's what most people want, is just to be heard. And you let this person talk, you let the other one talk, and then you have a happy meeting, and you try to find something that they can build on that, because it's not going to be utopia. Everyone's not going to get along, but if they remember to be professional, this is a place of work. This is where people put their money, and that comes first. Your feelings, all of those other things, that's secondary.
Yep.
But
and I always say all the time, you don't get to choose your coworkers, but if you can work with anybody, you can be a very effective employee.
That's right.
This is Keandra Crosby, and she asked, What inspired you to get into banking?
Well, before it became Chase, it was Texas Commerce Bank. My parents banked there. I banked there. My grandparents opened up us a savings account there. So I was used to going to the bank and putting my little $2 in or whatever I got from my other grandparents. And I built up a relationship with a lady named Barbara. She was always so nice and sweet to me, always got candy every time I went. She always wanted to see my report card. She invested in me, and I was just a little girl. And I thought, like, that's something that I possibly can do as a teller. And whenever I think about good days, bad days, or even when there's a customer that comes in named Barbara, I think about Barbara from when I was a little kid.
That's awesome. Now, this is a great question. This is Danielle Brown, and she asked, at what age do you think someone should get their first bank account?
We have different accounts, even as you're a baby from 0 to 5. We have accounts for that.
Wow.
We have accounts for college planning where the bank will match a certain amount up to 10 years old. I mean, that you would open before you hit 10. I think the perfect age, in my opinion, is probably when you're 16, because you're a little bit wiser, maybe more responsible than you would have been when you were 13 or 14.
Yeah, and I would say, just from the outside looking in, especially if you're working, you don't want to just be cashing your checks every week. You really want a place to manage that and start building that relationship, because it may be a place you can keep doing business with as you grow older in your career. Yeah. This is Robert Branson, and he asked, what is the most difficult problem you've had to solve as a manager?
It has not been at this bank, but as a manager that's an interesting question. One could be dealing with customers, not here, but at a different bank, that may not want you to service them because it's you.
Wow. That's pretty messed up.
Yeah, that is. But if once they get to understand that, hey, I can help you just as well as she can, even though she's under me, but I can help you too, you can work through some of those things.
Wow.
That's the most difficult.
Super impressive. And that's the last one from the students. This is Alonzo Johnson, and he asked, and this is really good that he's thinking about this. He asked, what would happen if I open an account and let it sit without doing anything to it for 2 years?
Well, it depends on what the interest rate is.
Yeah.
But more so, you're going down the path of being able to be a millionaire by the time that you're 65. If you were to put that money in some growth management account and just let it sit there and add to it every month or every year, a great substantial amount, you can retire and be okay.
Yeah, and I'm glad he's 14 years old and he's thinking about that. That's really good that his mind is thinking that, because that is a service that a bank offers, and it's something that is extremely useful. Now, we're almost out of time, but before we go, you did mention on a couple of occasions the importance of representation in the banking industry, and obviously this is the last day of Black History Month, but it's important to understand, like you said, there is opportunity for young Black students to get involved in banking at a young age and work their way up within some great companies and get involved in a great field. So, everybody that's hearing me now is a young Black student in rural Mississippi, but yet you're right down the street. You're a great Black professional doing some great things in a great field. So what can they do to possibly find their place in the same industry?
What you can do is, if you're working at McDonald's, Sonic, or whatever local restaurant, get cash handling experience.
Yep.
Be able to communicate, remain calm. And I'm not sure how many banks are in your area, but see if they have volunteer opportunities to build some type of trust. That's important. And then once you build that trust, then you can build on that and get a job, possibly with that bank.
Yeah, and that's great stuff. And I just think it's so important to understand that the finance is getting more and more diverse. The field's getting more and more diverse by the day. So it's important to understand that there are great opportunities for people that look like them and females and everybody else will have
That's right.
some others that'll watch this later. So it's important to know that there really is the opportunity for everyone, and that's some great stuff. But we thank you. Sorry we had the technical difficulties starting off.
That's on me.
Oh, it's fine. We planned ahead, and we thank you so much for joining us. And have a great rest of your week.
You too. Thank you so much. You all take care.
All right, thank you.